Chapter 1. The Innocent Encounter. In the bustling heart of a metropolitan city, where neon lights painted the night sky and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, there existed a Starbucks cafe, unlike any other. This particular Starbucks was nestled amidst towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, its inviting glow drawing in weary souls seeking solace in the warm embrace of a cup of coffee. Among these souls was Sarah, a young professional with a penchant for caffeine-fueled productivity. On a crisp autumn evening, Sarah decided to make a quick stop at her neighborhood Starbucks before heading home. As she stepped through the doors of the cafe, she was greeted by the familiar sights and sounds of the bustling establishment. The aroma of freshly ground coffee beans mingled with the hum of conversation as patrons lined up at the counter, eagerly awaiting their favorite brews. Sarah joined the queue, her mind preoccupied with thoughts of deadlines and meetings. She absent-mindedly tapped her foot to the rhythm of the cafe's ambient music, her gaze wandering around the cozy interior. Finally reaching the front of the line, Sarah placed her order with the barista, a simple venti latte to go. As she waited for her drink to be prepared, Sarah's eyes drifted to a peculiar figure seated in the corner of the cafe. He sat alone, shrouded in shadows cast by the dim lighting, his presence oddly unsettling amidst the otherwise lively atmosphere. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine as she caught sight of the man's piercing gaze, his eyes seemingly devoid of warmth or humanity. Feeling a sense of unease creeping over her, Sarah quickly averted her gaze and focused on the barista preparing her latte. Yet, despite her efforts to shake off the feeling of discomfort, she couldn't help but sense the man's eyes boring into her, his gaze like a weight pressing down on her shoulders. With her drink in hand, Sarah made her way to the exit, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to hang heavy in the air. But as she glanced over her shoulder, her heart skipped a beat as she saw the mysterious man rise from his seat, his movements deliberate and unsettling. Stay tuned for the next chapter as Sarah's encounter takes a chilling turn. Chapter 2. The Unnerving Presence. Despite her growing unease, Sarah brushed off the feeling of discomfort as she collected her latte from the counter. She tried to convince herself that it was merely her imagination running wild in the dimly lit cafe. Yet, as she made her way towards the exit, she couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. Each step she took seemed to echo in the silence, the familiar hum of conversation now replaced by an eerie stillness. Glancing over her shoulder, Sarah's heart quickened its pace as she saw the mysterious man rise from his seat in the corner, his movements slow and deliberate. His gaze followed her every move, sending a chill down her spine. It was as if his eyes bore into her soul, stripping away her defenses until she felt exposed and vulnerable. With a sense of growing unease, Sarah quickened her pace, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to suffocate her. Yet, no matter how fast she walked, the feeling of being pursued lingered like a shadow at her heels. The bustling city streets offered little solace as Sarah navigated through the throngs of people, her senses on high alert for any sign of danger. As she reached the safety of the street outside, relief washed over her like a wave. But before she could fully relax, a cold hand clamped down on her shoulder, causing her to gasp in terror. Whirling around, she came face to face with the sinister figure from the cafe, his eyes burning with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. What does the mysterious man want with Sarah? Stay tuned for the next chapter as the terrifying revelation unfolds. Chapter 3. The Terrifying Revelation. Frozen in fear, Sarah stared into the eyes of the sinister figure before her. His presence loomed over her like a dark cloud, suffocating her with dread. In a voice laced with malice, the man spoke words that chilled Sarah to the bone. "I've been waiting for you, Sarah," he said, his voice dripping with sinister intent. "I know everything about you." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she struggled to comprehend the meaning behind his ominous words. How could this stranger know her name? Panic threatened to overwhelm her as she searched for an escape route, but the man's grip on her shoulder tightened, trapping her in place. With a sense of mounting dread, Sarah listened as the man revealed the depths of his obsession with her. He spoke of watching her every move, of studying her habits and routines with unnerving precision. He knew where she lived, where she worked, even the names of her friends and family. Paralyzed with fear, Sarah could do nothing but listen as the man painted a picture of a nightmare she never knew existed. It was as if he had stepped out of the shadows to claim her as his own, to drag her down into the darkness from which he had emerged. Desperate for escape, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. She could scream for help, fight back against her assailant, or simply run as far and as fast as her legs would carry her. But as she glanced around, she realized with a sinking feeling that they were alone on the deserted street, with no one to hear her cries for help. With her heart pounding in her chest, Sarah knew that she had to find a way to break free from the man's clutches before it was too late. But as she searched for a glimmer of hope in the darkness, she couldn't shake the sinking feeling that this was only the beginning of her nightmare. What fate awaits Sarah in the clutches of her sinister pursuer? Stay tuned for the next chapter as the desperate escape unfolds. Chapter 4. The Desperate Escape. As fear tightened its grip around her heart, Sarah knew she had to act fast. With trembling hands, she fumbled for her phone, hoping to call for help. But before she could even unlock the screen, the man's cold grip tightened around her throat, cutting off her breath in a vice-like hold. Gasping for air, Sarah fought against the suffocating darkness that threatened to engulf her. Panic surged through her veins, driving her to summon every ounce of strength she possessed. With a surge of adrenaline, she mustered the courage to push back against her assailant's grasp. With a strangled cry, Sarah managed to break free from the man's hold. She stumbled backward, her heart racing as she struggled to put distance between herself and her tormentor. Every fiber of her being screamed for escape as she turned and flowed into the night. Her lungs burned with exertion as she raced through the labyrinthine streets, her footsteps echoing against the pavement in a frantic rhythm. The city seemed to blur around her as she ran, her only thought to put as much distance between herself and the danger that pursued her. But no matter how fast she ran, the man's haunting presence seemed to linger at the edges of her consciousness, a relentless specter that refused to be shaken. With every passing moment, Sarah's resolve wavered, her strength waning as exhaustion threatened to overtake her. Yet, driven by sheer terror and the primal instinct for survival, she pressed on, her feet pounding against the pavement in a relentless pursuit of safety. Finally, as dawn broke over the horizon, Sarah collapsed on the steps of her apartment building, her body bruised and battered, but her spirit unbroken. Though the nightmare was over, its echoes would linger in her mind for years to come. The Starbucks cafe that had once been a sanctuary now stood as a haunting reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows, waiting to ensnare the unwary. What toll has this harrowing ordeal taken on Sarah? And what secrets lie hidden in the darkness, waiting to be uncovered? Stay tuned for the next chapter as the haunting memory of her ordeal unfolds. Chapter 5. A Haunting Memory. As Sarah lay on the steps of her apartment building, her body trembling with exhaustion and fear, the events of the night replayed in her mind like a twisted nightmare. The image of the sinister figure, his eyes burning with malice, haunted her every thought, sending shivers down her spine. With trembling hands, Sarah reached into her pocket and retrieved her phone. She dialed the emergency number, her voice shaky as she recounted the harrowing ordeal she had endured. Help arrived swiftly, but even as the police escorted her to safety, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was still being watched. In the days that followed, Sarah struggled to come to terms with the traumatic events that had unfolded. Nightmares plagued her sleep, leaving her restless and haunted by visions of the man who had terrorized her. The once familiar streets of her neighborhood now felt like a maze of shadows and hidden threats, each corner harboring the potential for danger. Haunted by the memory of her ordeal, Sarah found herself unable to return to the Starbucks cafe where it had all begun. The thought of setting foot inside its familiar confines filled her with a sense of dread, as if the very walls held echoes of the terror she had experienced. But try as she might to avoid it, The memory of that fateful night lingered like a specter, casting a long shadow over every aspect of her life. No matter how hard she tried to bury it beneath layers of denial and distraction, the fear remained, a constant reminder of the fragility of her existence. As time passed, Sarah found solace in the support of friends and loved ones who rallied around her in her time of need. Together, they helped her rebuild the shattered pieces of her life, offering comfort and strength in the face of adversity. Yet, despite their best efforts to soothe her troubled mind, Sarah knew that the scars left by her ordeal would never truly fade. The Starbucks cafe that had once been a sanctuary now stood as a haunting monument to the horrors she had endured, a reminder that danger could lurk in the most unexpected of places. What toll has this traumatic experience taken on Sarah's psyche? And what dark secrets lie hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered? Stay tuned for the next chapter as the chilling tale of Sarah's ordeal continues to unfold. Chapter 6. The Ominous Return. Despite her best efforts to move on from the traumatic events of that fateful night, Sarah found herself drawn back to the Starbucks cafe, where her nightmare had begun. It was as if an unseen force compelled her to confront the darkness that lingered within its familiar confines, to unravel the mysteries that had plagued her ever since that harrowing encounter. With a sense of trepidation gnawing at her insides, Sarah stepped through the doors of the cafe once more. The familiar sights and sounds greeted her, but there was an undercurrent of tension in the air, as if the very walls whispered secrets that only she could hear. Every corner of the cafe seemed to hold a memory, a fragment of the terror she had experienced on that fateful night. She could almost feel the weight of the man's gaze upon her, his presence lurking in the shadows like a malevolent specter. Determined to confront her fears head-on, Sarah made her way to the corner table where the mysterious figure had sat that night. The seat was empty now, but the sense of unease lingered like a palpable presence, sending a chill down her spine. With trembling hands, Sarah reached into her pocket and retrieved her phone. She opened the camera app and began to snap photos of the cafe's interior, capturing every angle and every shadow in an attempt to uncover the truth that lay hidden beneath the surface. But as she reviewed the photos on her phone, her blood ran cold. In the dimly lit corners of the cafe, she spotted a figure lurking in the shadows, its features obscured by darkness. It was the same sinister presence that had haunted her nightmares since that terrifying night, a spectral apparition that seemed to defy explanation. With a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach, Sarah realized that the nightmare was far from over. Whatever darkness had taken root within the walls of the Starbucks cafe was still very much alive, waiting to ensnare its next unsuspecting victim. What sinister secrets lie hidden within the walls of the cafe? And what dark forces conspire to keep Sarah trapped in a web of fear and uncertainty? Stay tuned for the next chapter as the terrifying truth is finally revealed. Chapter 7. Confronting the Darkness. As Sarah delved deeper into the mystery surrounding the Starbucks cafe, she found herself consumed by a relentless obsession to uncover the truth. Every waking moment was consumed by thoughts of the sinister figure that had haunted her nightmares, driving her to the brink of madness in her quest for answers. Armed with nothing but her determination and a burning desire for justice, Sarah embarked on a journey into the heart of darkness that lurked within the cafe's familiar confines. She scoured the internet for any information that might shed light on the enigmatic figure that had terrorized her, piecing together fragments of cryptic clues and whispered rumors in her quest for understanding. But the more she searched, the deeper the mystery seemed to grow. Every lead turned out to be a dead end, every clue leading her further down a labyrinth of lies and deception. It was as if the darkness that had taken root within the cafe's walls was determined to keep its secrets buried, resisting Sarah's every attempt to uncover the truth. Undeterred by the mounting obstacles in her path, Sarah resolved to confront the darkness head-on. Armed with nothing but her courage and an unwavering resolve, she returned to the cafe once more, determined to unravel the mysteries that had eluded her for so long. As she stepped through the doors of the cafe, a sense of foreboding washed over her like a tidal wave. The familiar sights and sounds greeted her, but there was an undercurrent of tension in the air, as if the very walls were alive with malevolent intent. With a sense of trepidation gnawing at her insides, Sarah made her way to the corner table where the mysterious figure had sat that fateful night. The seat was empty now, but the memory of his chilling presence lingered like a ghost, haunting her every step. Summoning every ounce of courage she possessed, Sarah began to search the cafe for clues, scouring every inch of the familiar surroundings for any sign of the darkness that lurked within. She interrogated the baristas, questioned the regular patrons, and even ventured into the darkest corners of the cafe in her quest for answers. But try as she might, Sarah could find no trace of the sinister figure that had terrorized her. It was as if he had vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but a trail of unanswered questions and unfulfilled promises. Frustrated and exhausted, Sarah collapsed into a chair at the center of the cafe, her mind spinning with a whirlwind of emotions. It seemed that no matter how hard she tried, the truth would always remain just out of reach, a tantalizing mirage that shimmered on the horizon but could never be grasped. But as she sat there, lost in despair, a glimmer of hope flickered in the darkness. In the corner of her eye, Sarah caught sight of a figure lurking in the shadows, its features obscured by darkness, but its presence unmistakable. With a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins, Sarah leaped to her feet and confronted the figure head-on. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and defiance. "What do you want from me?" The figure remained silent for a moment, its gaze piercing through the darkness like a dagger. Then, with a voice that sent shivers down Sarah's spine, it spoke. "I am the darkness that lurks within us all," it said, its words echoing in the silence of the cafe like a death knell. "I am the fear that haunts your dreams, the shadow that stalks your every move. And I am here to claim what is rightfully mine." With a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach, Sarah realized that the figure before her was no ordinary man. It was a manifestation of her deepest fears and darkest desires, a reflection of the darkness that dwelled within her own soul. But even as she recoiled in horror, Sarah knew that she could not let the darkness consume her. With a newfound sense of determination, she faced the figure head-on, ready to confront the demons that had plagued her for so long. And as she stood there, bathed in the dim glow of the cafe's flickering lights, Sarah knew that she was not alone. For even in the darkest of times, there was always a glimmer of hope, a spark of light that could banish the shadows and illuminate the path to redemption. With a steely resolve, Sarah vowed to confront the darkness within and emerge stronger than ever before. For she knew that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it head-on, to confront the darkness and emerge victorious on the other side. As she stepped out into the night, a sense of peace washed over her like a cleansing tide. The nightmare was finally over, but the journey was far from finished. For Sarah knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with peril, but she faced it with courage and determination, ready to confront whatever darkness lay in wait. And as she disappeared into the shadows, the cafe stood silent and empty, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope in the face of adversity. For in the heart of darkness, amidst the chaos and confusion of everyday life, there was always a glimmer of light, a beacon of hope that could guide even the most lost souls back to safety. And as long as that light burned bright, there would always be hope for a brighter tomorrow.